So we're going to try this out, just an impromptu recording of some thoughts that Father Thomas has for us today, as we all kind of brace ourselves for Holy Week, and we're really starting to miss each other. We are missing each other, and it's really starting to hit home that we're not going to be able to spend these days together in prayer. Our Father here at church has something really important to talk to us about, and one of the big things that we've been thinking about is just how do we stay connected? How do we keep in touch with each other and just let each other know that we're there? So let's just listen to some words that Father Thomas has for us, and miss you all.
So I'm going to be really honest with everyone, as I always try to be, and say that I'm thrilled to have Yolanda helping me with this, because this has to be a group effort. I am not comfortable in being in an impromptu place, but on the other hand, Yolanda and I talk all the time when we meet. We're always talking about, of course, the things we have to do during the day or week, but we oftentimes think about the passage of the scriptures for Sunday or whatever. So I'm asking her to not just be an interviewer, but an interviewer and E. So the first thing I would say on that in terms of staying connected and staying in community is we love you very much. You are so much a part of our lives. Kriya Carla and I, Yolanda, Subdeacon David, Deacon George, Selwa, everyone. We are so connected and we so miss everyone. I have said to several people, and I will say it now, when I'm doing those services on Sunday at church, everything seems very normal when I'm facing the altar and facing the cross, and everything seems just fine until I turn around and I see an empty church building and a camera, and I feel there's a moment where I almost feel speechless because it feels so wrong. So staying connected, it's really important. One thing I would say from the beginning is we are, as a parish council, we are taking this one on full time. I am so proud of our parish council, how they came together. We have an emergency team. We've been meeting every Sunday on top of our normal meetings. We have teams that are set up to do exactly this, to stay in communication. Joe Borgonia is in charge of communication, but everyone's really there to do the same thing, and that is to stay connected. Helen is reaching out to people who may be in need. There are those who may have physical needs or needs for groceries or for medication or some kind of physical need. She's staying in touch with them. Kim is doing a wonderful job of sending out the little newsletter and keeping people connected. Everyone on that team, and of course we have the communications team at church who have set up cameras and doing all this stuff we've never had before in our church. Once at St. James we had a camera and a recording and an internet, but now we have it. It all works. And so most importantly, on a practical level, we are trying to stay in touch. We are not trying to stay in touch. We are committed to staying in touch with our church and not letting anyone feel like they're alone.
Yeah, I know that Kim is also really interested in getting stories from all of you. She's interested in your saints. She wants to put those out on her weekly reflections, so we can just look at each other's faces and see each other and read about our saints and how we became connected with those things. It seems to be very encouraging and helpful to all, and she is running out of people. So get a hold of Kimmy or myself and we can get you on. It would be really wonderful to see your faces and your saints in that way.
Absolutely. You know, one thing I always think about, and even more right now when we feel the tendency is to feel so disconnected, is the communion of the saints. We talk about this a lot, and yet now we do feel it, because even though we're not physically connected, we are spiritually and mystically connected. So every time we pray the hours of prayer, we pray the prayer, O thou who at all places and at all times art worshipped and glorified, O Christ God. We're not, when we come together in worship, we're not starting the worship service. Heaven is not waiting for us to start the worship. That worship is always ongoing. It never stops. We're, in a practical sense, we're opening the door and seeing something that may perhaps we may not be seeing before we begin, but once that door is open, we're inviting ourselves in and God in, and we're connecting with that mystical worship that takes place. And of course, we know that's with the angels, the Holy Trinity, the angels constantly falling before the throne. But of course, we know that we're surrounded by a myriad of the saints who have departed this life before us. They're a part of it. So when we broaden that out just a little bit, we know that that includes every one of us in this church, everyone all over the world. We're all in connection, interconnected, and especially in our worship.
There is a profound picture floating around the internet somewhere of an Orthodox church that has empty rows just like ours, but it has icons where everybody is, I guess, supposed to be sitting. There's just all of their icons there. And so it is true. We are always connected spiritually.
Yeah. Something I have been wanting to say, because I am encountering it a lot and very honestly dealing with it a lot, and that is the feeling of confusion. That's not quite it. Depression, grief. I would even call it grief. Grief manifests itself in lots of different ways. Different ways. We think grief means, I feel sad, I'm sorry, depression. And that's that's one of the manifestations, but it's in so many different ways. We see it, and we need to be aware of it. For instance, grief can manifest itself, and depression can manifest itself in anger. I can be deeply angry about something, and even yelling and taking it out on my friends and family around me, and not for a moment think, this is because of my grief. A very practical example of that in my life was my own mother, who dealt terribly with depression. When my father died of cancer, my father passed away. I've told you in my church the story. For at least a year, my mother was in the absolute pit of depression. There was no way that anyone could reach her. And I remember on several occasions trying to get through to her and to say, Mom, I think what's going on here, the reason you're so angry, which is the way that she expressed her depression, one of them, the reason that you're so angry is that Dad's not here anymore and you miss Dad. I wish I could bring him back. I wish you could go to the restaurant together tonight and have a meal together and spend time with him like you always did. And I think that's why you're so upset. I think that's what's going on. For a year, at least a year, that never worked. It just would make things worse usually. It was her friends who loved her and who pushed past that, who would come to her house and say, Phyllis, get in the car, we're going shopping and having lunch together. Even over no, I don't want to go, I'm not dressed for that, I don't want to do that, I don't feel like it. Even over that would be loving enough to say, well, we're not dressed properly either, but who cares? We're going to go have lunch, then we're going to go shopping. Finally, she turned that corner, and the day came when she said to me, you know, you're right, I miss your father. And that's why I feel the way I feel, and that's why I'm so angry. So those expressions of grief, like anger, like deep depression, malaise, I just don't know what to do, I don't even want to get out of bed, lack of faith, all of those things are part of this grief that we're feeling from this thing that's happening around us.
I was sitting at my desk today and I'm modifying the preparations list for the 2020 Holy Week prep, and I just felt that. I felt that just this heavy feeling like on my back, like there was something on my back. And I know we're all just going to miss each other this year. But I know that I also had a phone call with Anna yesterday, and it really just was uplifting to hear her voice. Like, I know we text each other and stuff, but maybe start some phone calls, you know. Hearing that voice just brought tears to my eyes. My sister that I'm with every Tuesday morning, and it was just really uplifting. I just feel like, you know, there are so many things we can do. You know, the text messaging is great. If you're in a pinch, you're thinking about somebody, text them, you know, but give calls. You know, I really didn't realize how much I missed that voice, and talking to each other, getting outside, you know, and hugging each other, because we're missing hugging each other. We hug a lot at our church. We kiss a lot at our church, and, you know, hug and kiss the people that are around you right now, because those are the ones you can. Virtual hugs with me and Father Thomas virtually hug.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's one last thing. We decided we'd shoot for about 10 minutes on this. We will keep doing this and work as we go along. So bear with us as we're doing this.
Yes.
The last thing that I wanted to drop in here came from Joe in our last emergency meeting, Joe Borgonia, in our last emergency meeting of the parish council. And that is, it was a great suggestion and a simple one, which oftentimes we miss the simple things because we're always trying to think of something hard, and sometimes the very simple things right in front of us we don't see. So Joe brought up, and in fact, he separately is going to leave a word also for you, a recording and a little word with some more practical thoughts on how to do this. But he said, yeah, how about sponsors of those who have come into the church? So the more I thought about that, the more obviously, yes, godparents and sponsors should be intimately involved with this, with their charges. So just a word on this and not to belabor it, but in the earliest times, that's why candidates were given when someone was brought in from the outside, brought in to be a candidate for baptism, adults, as it was in the early church, they would be given a sponsor, someone who could be with them, guide them, kind of walk through them with this on this path that they're on. Tragically, we've lost all that now. Tragically, it seems to be the norm, or wants to be the norm. Shame on us that the only ones coming into the church are babies who have been born and brought into the church. Shame on us for being complacent and thinking that's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing, unless it becomes the only thing, in which it becomes an aberration to be doing that. So we have adults coming into this church and children coming into the church, of course, babies, children, parents. So we have sponsors, and the role of the sponsor, as someone more wise than myself said, it doesn't stop at the baptism. Someone, stands there and if it's a baby or a child, puts the garment on the child, gives them the cross, and thinks, well, that's where this all stops. No, that's where this all starts. We walk with our godchildren, with our sponsors for the rest of their lives. We are with them on their feast days. We are with them every Sunday in church. When they're young, we bring them to communion. We carry them to communion, or we walk with them to communion. And in times of crisis like this, we need to be in contact with those that we have been given charge over.
Yes, I think it's been really encouraging to stay in touch with my godchildren, and even to hear from my sponsor. It's just been wonderful. And if we all do it, we'll cover each other over times, because some of us are, like I have a goddaughter who has another set of who her sister has another set of godparents. So we'll just be keeping in touch with people once over and over again, and that's just exactly what we all need right now. So I'm really excited about that, and just even if that just becomes our one or two responsibilities for this time, is just to keep in touch with our charges. So
again, I want to thank Yolanda for helping me through something that's an awkward thing for me, because I'm just not used to doing it. But we said, just as we started, we're doing this as a service. And I thank Yolanda for being with me on this kind of dry run, and she'll be with me as we do more of these. So I just want to encourage you, and Joe will give you some practical tips on how you can stay in touch with your charges that you have. And I want to encourage you as your pastor in closing, please let this be a time to draw closer to God. It feels like a time to run away from God. Why is this happening? I want to blame somebody. I'm going to blame God. I'll become indifferent. I don't care about church anymore. I'm not going to read the scriptures. I'm not going to follow Holy Week. I'll just take a vacation. No, we don't take a vacation. We draw closer in times of crisis. Don't be afraid. Don't be alone. Reach out. Don't be quiet. If there's a need, let us know. Come to confession. We're here. God bless you. We will get through this by the grace and mercy of God. May Christ, our true God, through the prayers of his all pure Mother, the glorious and all laudable apostles, and all the saints, have mercy on us and save us. Amen.
Amen.
Greetings to everyone. This is Joe. I do admit that I am a bit out of my comfort zone doing this recording, because this is something that I don't normally do. But being out of my comfort zone may reflect how others might be feeling also, based on the pandemic at hand, and we hear about it always in the news right now. We're not used to being sheltered in place, and I know it's not normal being disconnected from others. We're relational beings. We need connection. That's the way we're wired, to be in community, especially in the Christian context. I know right now it's very difficult to do that. However, I do want to offer some ideas that will help continue our community connection with others and maintain the relationships which we all have here at St. James. Here are some suggestions. If you are a godparent to any child here at church, reach out to your godchild and their parents by a phone call or maybe sending a card. You might consider sending a short video message to your godchild through their parents so that your godkids can see you and you can maintain a connection that way. If you have kids and their godparents are here at St. James or elsewhere, reach out to them. It doesn't have to be just a one-way deal. Make it both ways. If you are a sponsor or a sponsee to anyone here at church, reach out to your sponsee or your sponsor. Make that connection. Okay, what if I don't fall into any of the above categories that I mentioned? I have an idea for you too. I know that we all sit in the same section at church every Sunday, and we probably sit in the same pews every week. Who are the people that sit in front of you, behind you, maybe across the aisle that you see every week? Who are the parishioners that you greet during the Divine Liturgy when Father Thomas says, "Christ is in our midst," and we all respond, "He is and ever shall be"? Reach out to those folks by a phone call or a card or maybe an email message. Make that connection. During coffee hour, who do we sit with regularly or occasionally? Reach out to them. We received a card recently from someone here at church, and it felt really good getting it. The person took the time, wrote a nice little note to us, and we felt special. Cards are good. I hope that these suggestions help us stay connected with one another and in community. Desiring connections with others is normal, especially in these abnormal times. I wish everyone and their families the very best. God is in our midst. Keep well and safe.